So hi everyone, welcome to this first interview of Traveler Scientist Goes to Antarctica. So today we have Cathy Sorbara, and I have to say that I invited Cathy and I'm so honored that she agreed to be here today because she was my biggest and main inspiration to join Homeward Bound and in many other aspects of my personal and professional life. So I'm super honored that she's here with us today. Hi, Cathy. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a total pleasure. So just a couple of words about Cathy. She has a PhD in neuroscience. She's from Canada originally. Been living in Cambridge for the past, how many years?
5 years.
5 years. That's actually where I met her. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years ago that we met, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's been working for 4 years with the Cheeky Scientists Association, helping PhDs transition into industry. And she now moved to Utrecht in the Netherlands. And she was HB2, so she traveled to Antarctica February last year. And I am so pleased that she will be here today telling us all about her experience. I'm super curious to hear it again because we talked about this when you just got back from Antarctica and it was like so inspiring, and hopefully this will inspire many other women too. And yeah, maybe someone will want to join as well. So Cathy, let's start just by saying, like, how did you learn about Homeward Bound?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It was very serendipitous. So at the time, I was the chair of the Cambridge Association for Women in Science and Engineering. And there was a woman in the group named Deborah Pardo who had come to one of our events and was telling us about this trip she was going on and all about Homeward Bound, and that she was fundraising and that she would love to talk to us about what she was up to. It sounded a bit obscure at the time. I didn't really think much of it, but we said, sure, when you come back, why don't you come and give us a talk? Because we love to have on inspiring women at our events. So she did, and I was floored. I was so inspired. I was practically in tears, I think, when I saw the video of her in Antarctica. And I just thought, I wonder if I could go. Deborah, of course, was studying an Antarctic species. And so in my brain, it kind of made sense that she was going because her research was related to the area, and she was still in research at the time. So I asked her afterwards, is there any way that someone like me, me being a neuroscience background, not the typical person you would envision in Antarctica, could I apply? And she said, absolutely. The catch, of course, is that I believe she gave the talk on a Tuesday, and the applications for HB2 were due that Sunday. So time was of the essence, but I felt like this was just pure magic that I had this time frame even. So, she could have given the talk the week after, and then there was no way I could have applied at all. So this was my chance. So I jumped on the opportunity, and I'm very grateful for Deborah for giving that talk and inspiring us all that evening.
Yeah. So Deborah, she was HB1, right? So she was the first cohort that traveled to Antarctica. That must be quite different for her, I imagine, because now we are like already with the HB4, we are learning so much from previous experiences. And I imagine your experience was quite different from hers as well. So how was the whole year of preparation for you before the trip? So you applied. Okay, now first tell us, like, what was your reaction when you got the news that you've been accepted? Did you think that you will be accepted?
No, definitely not. I had complete imposter syndrome when I was applying. And I remember So part of the application process, for those who don't know, is that you have to put together a small video, a little elevator pitch about yourself. And I remember doing it the Saturday, the day before, hello procrastinator, and I was putting it together, and then all of a sudden I shut down my computer and I'm like, you know what, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I just thought it was terrible. My video was terrible. And then I came back a couple hours later and I thought, I'm just going to say what I feel. And then whatever happens, happens. But I totally didn't think I was going to get it. Then I got the the email that I got in. And I immediately, I think I left my house and I took a walk around the block. So I was just like, this isn't possible. I don't believe this. And my partner at the time, he was in Chicago for work. And so I called him, and it would have been around 6 a.m. Chicago time. So he immediately thought someone had died, something terrible has happened, because I never call him that early in the morning. And yeah, I was super excited. So
wow,
it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get the procrastination part, because actually I recorded my video like literally like last minute. Applications were closing. I was at this event in Sweden, in Stockholm, and I was like, okay, I need just like 5 minutes to sit with my computer and record this video. And I literally did it like last minute and just sent it. And I guess I didn't really think much about it. It was like more or less the same, like, how do I feel about this? Okay, let's go for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah,
totally get that. And also the imposter syndrome. I also had that. Like, there's no way in hell that I will be accepted. Yeah. Totally. So how was your year of preparation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was quite lucky, because living in Cambridge, which was quite near to London, I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the women that I would then meet in Argentina, because either they also lived in the UK, there was about 10 of us, and I was in the UK cohort, or they passed through London like on a conference or something like that, visiting. And I think that, to me, meeting the women in the lead up to the journey was really special. And I can't tell you how inspiring it was to be around all of them. So part of the lead up is that you form these triads. So you're in groups of 3 or 4 women, and you meet either virtually or in person, depending on the time zones and where you all are. And you talk about what you feel about the program, how your progress is going. And that, to me, was one of the most valuable components, was getting to know the women beforehand, learning where they're at, what they're excited about, what they're worried about. And that kind of initial bonding period was really special. There is so much in the lead up. I think it went from this period of, what am I doing? Right? To all of a sudden, everything seems to happen like one after another. There's like this domino effect. You do your LSI evaluation, which is a lifestyles inventory. Did you get it done? Nice. Yeah, so that was
like a couple of days ago. I received the results. I haven't read it yet, actually.
Yeah. So you do like a 360 evaluation of yourself and your leadership skills, and the people who you interact with also evaluate you. And you get one-on-one coaching. And that, to me, was one of the best aspects of the pre-voyage, was those discussions with the coach on my leadership skills, where I saw myself as a leader and where I wanted to go as a leader. Mm-hmm. There was this amazing scientific communication and visibility component, which I found really helpful in terms of putting ourselves out there and doing so in a manner that was okay with us, right? So we all have our own ways in which we can be visible, or that we want to be visible, and we want to do so in a meaningful way. Without it, it's just vanity, right? And that's something that we're taught pretty early on. And then there was the science projects. And I was in the science communication group, which was quite the experience, because I believe there was around 15 of us. So you can imagine, or organizing a group of 15 women from across the world within a few months of the voyage to come together and put together this project. It was quite an interesting feat of organization, but it was one of those things that, for me, not coming from a climate change background, The science project was really important to me to learn more about what was happening in the field and how to talk to other people about it. So I guess in summary, there was a lot of different components, but it was all fantastic to kind of see it all laid out once it got underway. And of course, also the fundraising component of raising the money to go to Antarctica, which was pretty cumbersome at first, but I think was really important in the end to be able to create a narrative for myself about why I wanted to go, and then articulate that narrative to other people. And fundraising allowed me to do that. So that was really important.
Yeah, that's true. I also actually I'm in that exact moment right now. I'm also starting my fundraising. I'm actually launching next week, and I also went through this process of like, oh, like I have no idea, like maybe this is not for me. Then it was like getting a little bit of clarity. Okay, I can do like all this, so many things, and then you're just like, okay, let's be real. Like I cannot do all of this. So how do I narrow it down to actually what I can do personally? What are my skills? What are my strengths? And what I can contribute? And it actually came together kind of like almost like magically, I would say like 2 or 3 days ago, where I was like, I just sat in front of my computer and just wrote like one page of like, okay, this is my goal. So this is what I want to bring to the table. And yeah, it's amazing that at some point we all have this similar experiences.
Yeah.
So now tell me about the part that I have no idea, and I can say that actually it scares me. Like I'm totally out of my comfort zone on a boat. I'm totally out of my comfort zone in such a cold place as Antarctica, such like remote and vulnerable. So tell us about the trip. So how was that? Like your emotions, your feelings, your experiences? What was that like?
Okay, so how long do we have?
We're good. You have time. This is the most exciting part. So
yeah, it's hard to articulate it actually, and I think you'll hear that from a lot of the women, and it means, or it meant something different to every woman on that ship. For me, putting myself in that situation was a big opportunity for me to learn from other women and to, as you said, step outside your comfort zone. Being on a ship is something I would never normally do. If anybody knows me, they know saying that I don't like the water is putting it lightly. I'm terrified of water. So floating on a vessel within the water was probably not my idea of a fun time. But being in that situation in Antarctica with all those inspiring women just made it all worth it. And I think you'll realize when you're there just how absolutely breathtaking it is. And you can never really articulate to someone else what it means to be there. But when you go, a piece of Antarctica will always stay with you. It is just this majestic place. And you feel like you are a visitor in this magical place where nothing else in the world matters. And I think what's really magical about the journey is the fact that you are forced to turn off everything else that's happening in your life and really focus on this one thing that you're doing. And we don't really get to do that very often in our lives. I know I'm terrible at it. And that makes the whole thing a lot more special, because you can just be with those women and you can experience that atmosphere and it's yours. And so I think being there was just all that more special. And learning from the women was incredible. Learning how you would adapt to something like that is also a very interesting experience. Because if you think about what do you do right now to keep yourself calm, right? What do you do to relax at the end of the day? Maybe it's that you have a conversation with your partner. Maybe it's that you go for a run or that you do some other type of yoga or meditation. But which part of that routine can you still hold on to once you're in Antarctica and you're on a ship with all of these women and you don't have any contact with the outside world? And you kind of have to reframe what you do to relax, what you do during the day, like what your routine is. But then it's also amazing how quickly you do adapt to your new routine. So all of a sudden it became routine to go out on the deck and watch whales with your cup of coffee, and sit in the lounge and talk about with other women about climate change, and just have this incredible program laid out to you. So it was changing in a lot of different ways, and it was really special to be able to share your ideas with the other women on the ship. I think out of all of the things that happened because of Homeward Bound, the network of women that I met through HB2 far surpasses it all, because they are an incredible group of women, and I consider them to be my friends. And I know that I can reach out to them at any time, and they can reach out to me, and we have each other's backs. And I mean, how many people can you say that about? That is just incredibly special. And not only that, but these women are doing some incredibly amazing things. That's Antarctica in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. That's exactly the thing that I was thinking about. It's not just like the network, it's not just women, it's just like this amazing women who have they have the background, they have the skills, they have the power, and now they have also the tools to make this change that we all want to see a reality. I think that's so powerful to see. So how much did you know about climate change and everything that is going on, and what can be done before you went on that trip? And how much do you know now, or after getting off the ship and back in the sky?
Yeah, so learning about climate change was one of the reasons that I had chosen to do Homeward Bound, because that wasn't my background at all. And I wanted to learn from the other women on the ship. And I also wanted to see firsthand in Antarctica and speak to the scientists there. One thing I didn't mention is that we got the opportunity to visit a lot of the research stations and see what the researchers were doing on the ground. And you could hear some incredible stories about how much things have changed just on their bases since the time that they started doing research there until now, which really speaks to the extension of change that's happening at the moment, which is quite remarkable in a negative way. So I walked in there not knowing very much, but wanting to absorb as much as I could. And I walked out having learned quite a lot. So not necessarily even from the program. So there is science faculty that's on the ship that did teach us a lot about the area and what's happening. And also within our science groups, you get to learn quite a lot. But there's also this fantastic component of the program called Symposium at Sea, where each woman gives a short 3-minute talk about what they're up to. And from that, you get to see what space everybody else is in. And you have the opportunity to then collaborate and speak with those women even more. So it wasn't even just what was on the agenda, let's say, in terms of what you would learn, but also just speaking to the women on the ship. I think that was even more valuable, learning their backgrounds, learning what they're currently either researching in or the space that they're working in. There was a few women working in the policy space, and I found that incredibly interesting. A woman who was looking at the way that healthcare or people's well-being has to do with climate change, which I think is an often overlooked subject, and all sorts of things like that. So learning firsthand from them, I think, was incredibly valuable. So I walked away with a lot richer knowledge on the topic.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. So do you also feel more equipped now after the trip to, with the leadership tools, that kind of how empowered do you feel to make this change possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a difficult one to articulate as well, because I think people's shift after the voyage depended a lot from where they started and where they wanted to go. So there was some women who wanted to make a very large shift. So for myself, for example, like I was in a space that had nothing to do with climate change, and now I want to transition into the sustainability shift. So my transition a pivot was going to be quite large. Other women were already in the space that they wanted to be in, but maybe they wanted to form more collaborations, or they wanted the confidence to be able to lead more within their respective field. So it all depends on what your mindset is going in and what you want to gain from it. So I just want to be careful that I'm not saying anything like, it's going to change your life. And then you never want to overblow things. But I think whatever you want to get from it, you can, because you have the support system there, and that's really important. So I know now that if I want to transition into this space, that there is this network of women that I can tap into to help me, and that they can, if they can't help me, then they can introduce me to people or they can introduce me to material or classes or whatever it happens to be that I want. And it's that kind of network, that intimate strategic network that you have at your fingertips now that I think is really helpful. And I think one thing that Homeward Bound does really well is to give you a more introspective look about yourself and where you're currently at in terms of how you lead, ways that you can improve upon your leadership, and helping you be more strategic about where you want to go in the future.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've already started experiencing that as well during the monthly calls and the materials that they're giving us, like to read, to listen, and the trials, as you mentioned. Yeah, it's super powerful. So, and what are your current projects? What are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, so as I alluded to, my goal at the moment is to transition into the sustainability space. So I am currently taking a course called Sustainability Management. That's out of the University of Cambridge. I'm also taking another course on circular economy. So I'm really trying to upskill myself within this field and network within this field while I'm in Holland. My idea at the moment is to really help businesses be more sustainable. One of the main, I think, barriers for us to hit a lot of the sustainable development goals is the way that we look at the economy, the way the economy is evaluated, and the way businesses work with government and with the financial sector to meet these goals. So while, of course, individual things matter, the way that we live day to day, it's really going to take a big push at that high level of finance, government, and business to really hit the targets that we need in terms of the sustainable development goals.
Yeah. Well, it sounds that you've already grown a lot in terms of like where you wanted to be when you started this journey with Homeward Bound and where you're at right now. So yeah. Congratulations for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So I have, I think, like one final question for you. What would you say to someone who wants to apply to Homeward Bound and maybe they're in that space, like doubtful space, where their imposter syndrome is saying like, oh, this is not for me, I'm not good enough, or something like that. So what would you tell these women who are thinking about Homeward Bound?
Yeah, so I think one of the really interesting things that happened when we first all arrived in Argentina, so we had a few days in Ushuaia before we boarded the ship to Antarctica. And one of the first questions that Baby asked us all was, who here doesn't think they should be here? Who thinks, who's riddled with an imposter syndrome right now? And pretty much everybody raised their hand. And you're talking about Nobel Prize winner, head of policy, leaders in their field, all these brilliant women. And we were all thinking, I can't believe I'm here. So I guess that realization that you're not alone and you are way more brilliant than you probably think you are, and to really put those feelings aside and kind of take this leap of faith, because it really is worth it. And it's an incredible thing to do. And I guess Evgenia and I are both examples of people who have that imposter syndrome, procrastinated on applying to the program, but then we're successful in the end. So it's worth the journey. And I think it really is that journey of learning more about yourself and what you want to do that makes it super special, and the network of women. So, if it's not you, then who's it going to be? If it's not now, then when is it going to be? So you just have to jump in and go for it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great advice. Actually, I still remember the moment where you were telling me about your trip, and I was also like, oh, that's so interesting. And you said like, you can do it, you could do it too. And I was like, I don't think so, like this is not for me. And then look at me, I'm here, and I'm actually getting on that ship in November this year, so 6 months from now. So it's amazing. And I think it's also amazing how we can inspire each other to take, as you said, like that leap of faith. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for being here and for agreeing to this interview. And I think like people will be so inspired by you, and we'll want to connect with you and learn more, hopefully.
It's my pleasure. I'm incredibly jealous that you get to go again in November. You're going to have an amazing time. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye everyone. And we will have more interviews coming soon. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.